The Chicago Bears are trying to find some stability around Hallis Hall after what was really a crazy couple of days that we're still all recovering from. And I can't help but feel like Ryan Poles and the organization has had to do a lot of being reactive and not spending enough time being proactive.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Bears. You can like Locked On Bears on Facebook, join the Locked On Bears Facebook group for even more Bears talk, and make sure you hit that subscribe button on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel to keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. On the show today, we catch up on the Chicago Bears' response to everything that happened earlier this week with Alan Williams resigning abruptly and some wild rumors / speculating and now some reporting, but not a lot of clear answers on what exactly is going on with him. We'll also hear from Luke Getsy. It's sort of the response to what Justin Fields said about coaching and the offense and playing more loose and more free. And then we'll wrap up with how we would normally do a full Friday podcast on like what the Bears need to do in order to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. But some bigger fish to fry here today on this Friday Fish Fry podcast. And also, it's going to be hard to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. This is one we're not going in with a lot of optimism for a Bears victory, but I think there is some wiggle room here to find some weaknesses on the defending Super Bowl champions. But let's start bigger picture here, organizationally, right? A lot shaking this organization, this franchise, right? Not just the team, not just the players on the field, but across the coaching staff and the front office. So Ryan Poles, give him credit for, not just hiding in the shadows and letting this one kind of blow over after a couple days, but coming out and holding a press conference that he wouldn't normally hold a press conference between week 2 and week 3, but said, all right, there's a lot going on right now. We need a solidifying force, a steadying voice, just sort of an organizational direction to try and get things back on track. And to his credit, I think he handled this well and gave off some real, confidence and stability that I think was needed.
We have adversity right now. Slow start, 0-2, not where you want to be. We've dealt with life issues. We've dealt with injuries. And that's all real, and that's a part of what we do and what we got to deal with. The beautiful thing about our philosophy here, our organization, is we're solution-oriented. We work together to find these solutions and solve our problems to get everything back on track. To make it really, really clear, I know the outside noise, but no one in our building's panicking. No one's flinching at any situations. Not our owner, not our president, not our head coach, not myself. None of our players. Everyone's focusing on solving the issues that we have so that we can be a better football team.
I don't know that I fully believe that no one flinched. And I don't know that anyone's panicking per se, but certainly he says all the right things there, right? That is sort of the, hey guys, put out the fire, take a deep breath. Everything is okay. Everything is going to be fine. I like that he admits on the front end, yeah, we're dealing with some stuff right now. There's no denying that. And you gain nothing by trying to hide it or run away from it. And yeah, things haven't gone the way we wanted them to. And some additional things outside of our control have also gone wrong. And so I do give Ryan Poles credit for that. I just feel like organizationally, they haven't been very good at getting out ahead of some of this stuff, specifically from a public relations standpoint and from an organizational messaging standpoint. Certainly by putting Alan Williams on leave, I think that was one way of getting ahead of things, especially as, we still, the Pat McAfee show has sort of said, also reporting that Alan Williams' home was raided by the FBI. So there's some level of confirmation on that aspect of things, but it all still feels very speculative and a little bit uncertain because we're not getting the sort of bona fide, regular, highly credible, credentialed reporters reporting any of it yet. Because I think my theory is that because it's so scandalous, because it's so hellacious, because it's so, detrimental, you don't want to be wrong about this one. So you can't risk rushing in there and misreporting some things, as it appears there were initially in the rumors and speculation, and jeopardize your credibility as a reporter if you get this one wrong. So I think that's why we're seeing the Ian Rappaports and the Adam Schefters of the world sit this one out for now. And even like the beat reporters on the beat, like we're not getting any reporting on this, not because they haven't heard what's going on, but because they need to let this one play out a little bit first before you can really go to print, if you will, with some of these things. But like, to me, it still feels like, Matt Eberflus comes out in that press conference Wednesday morning, says no comment, no comment, no comment, no update, no update, no update. And 5 hours later, Alan Williams resigns. Like, it just feels like they haven't been able to like stay ahead of that. And same thing with like Fields, right? He has his press conference thing and then everything runs wild and Fields has to come back in and kind of walk some things back and be careful clarifying those things. And then of course, it's not until the next day that we hear from Ryan Poles and Luke Getsy to try and reverse things. Like, it just feels like it's been a lot of like bad thing happens and then the Bears got to come back and be like, oh, hey, yeah, let's clean up what just the bad thing happened, instead of like staying ahead of things and saying like, okay, Alan Williams is dealing with a personal issue and is away from the team. And, like, we're not sure, like they could have given us more than no update, no comment, no update, no comment. He's gone. Oh, wow. He's gone. Wow. Well, where did that come from? Oops. And then let me walk that back a little bit. Like, I understand they can't comment on an active investigation, if law enforcement is involved, but it just has felt to me a little bit like not able to get ahead of very many of these things, despite having some ability to do so and maybe not handling it perfectly well. But it's clear. The one trend you got to watch here with Alan Williams, you hear Ryan Poles, heard Matt Eberflus yesterday. We've heard everybody who's talked since then. When asked about Alan Williams, all they say is, I don't have an update on the situation. I've got no comment. I'm not going to speak about that, right? Alan Williams resigned, citing personal issues, family issues, health issues. If it were just family issues and health issues, don't you think Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, especially a coach who's coached with him for a long time, would say, hey, we're going to miss Alan. We really wish him the best. We're praying for him. We're sad to lose him, but we know he's got to take care of his business, and we respect that, and we got to let him do his thing, but we love him, and we're still rooting for him, right? Like, wouldn't that be the normal thing if a coach resigned purely for family and health reasons during the season? There's definitely more to this, and I think a lot more is going to come out sooner rather than later, and it's hard to get much farther than that with what we know for sure right now. But the accusations behind the scenes are really bad and seem to be moving towards truer and truer the longer this goes. So it's a rough situation, but Ryan Poles trying to make sure that this ship doesn't sink. It's just rocky a little bit right now, some troubled waters, but trying to hold things down with his press conference there. Luke Getsy also trying to stabilize things offensively, come to Justin Fields' defense a little bit, come to his own defense a little bit, and clarify some of the comments about what's going on with this quarterback and this offense. We'll hear what he had to say, and again, where we're buying some of it and not buying other parts of it next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Gametime is the go-to place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. They got flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less somewhere else, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. I was just looking ahead to the next Bears home game against the Broncos. I got tickets for as low as $138 on Gametime. Plus, you can get images of your seats before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem our promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you're going to get $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or DoorDash will make sure they make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. It's super handy, when you're about to get ready for dinner and you're like, oh man, I'm almost out of this, olive oil or whatever the thing is. I just need that one ingredient. I don't want to run to the store because the kids are at home. I don't want to pack up the car, run to the store to get that one item and come back to then make the ingredient. You know what I mean? DoorDash can just, boom, deliver it right to your door. And if you want even more value, you can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders if you get a Dash Pass membership. With easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer approval, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want them. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout. It's a limited time offer. Terms apply. That's $50% off up to $20 with no minimum subtotal and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter in our promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Don't forget, LOCKEDONNFL for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. A lot of controversies the Chicago Bears were dealing with this week. It's hard to rank. I think when the Alan Williams details fully come out, that will certainly be the biggest controversy of the day. But for a while, the Justin Fields situation was the biggest controversy of the day when he comes out and seemingly calls out his coaching staff, maybe indirectly, but still is critical and points to coaching as one of the reasons why he's struggling. Then hours later, holds a second mini press conference to walk back the comments and say, hey, you guys are taking me out of context, which I don't think is true. But, wasn't calling out my coaches. It blames on me. Don't worry about it. Tries to correct the record. We went through that scenario yesterday on the podcast. If you haven't listened to that, our bonus podcast yesterday, I guess it was a bonus podcast Wednesday night ahead of our crossover Thursday podcast. It's been a busy week and it's been tough to keep things straight. Even on that bonus podcast, I kept calling Braxton Jones Larry Borum, and all of you in the Locked On Bears YouTube channel comments, you made sure to let me know. I appreciate you guys keeping me on my toes. Braxton Jones, not Larry Borum. I know. I was only thinking about 15 different things that happened that day and 4 different podcasts that I was on. So I apologize for mixing up Braxton Jones and Larry Borum a few different times during that show. Also, a really big thing that happened on Wednesday that can kind of overlooked by the Field stuff and the Alan Williams stuff. But Thursday, we got to hear from Luke Getsy, kind of get the other side of the Justin Fields offensive equation. And, I don't know. I found myself a little bit, I don't want to say disappointed because I didn't necessarily change I was probably not expecting. I should have expected more, but I don't know. I was hoping for Luke Getsy to come out and say, hey, he's right. We got to do more to get him going. We got to change some things up and we got to make this work. But I shouldn't have necessarily expected him to just outright say that, even if they may end up doing some of those kind of things. But here's what he said instead when he was asked about, why Justin Fields is saying he's playing robotic a little bit and says, maybe he's getting too much coaching and kind of in his head a little bit and not playing fast and loose.
I think as we talk about his evolution, he's becoming, an NFL quarterback. And I think that part of it, that experience and that style of play, I think there's a few plays in the game that he wishes he had different reactions, and I think he refers to them as instincts and letting his instincts take over, right? And that is real. That is what he has special talents. He has special instincts, and I think at the same time when you want to throw a route, the one play that everyone kind of talks about, DJ kind of clapping on the backside or whatever because he was stuck on Moon, right? He wanted to throw that sail route to Moon, and Moon got disrupted because he was pressed, and so he was trying to give him an extra hitch. And then it just ended up taking a little bit too long. And so that's part of their evolution. You give him a hitch, you think he's going to win, you maybe give him one more, and then it's time to move on. And whether that's moving on in your progression or whether that's moving on with your feet, the protection was pretty good until he took a few too many hitches. And those are the types of plays that we got to continue to get better at. We work on them every single day here. We're working on pocket presence. We're working on those situations when it's time to go and when it's time to progress. So that's the evolution of a quarterback.
I think what Luke Getsy's saying there makes a lot of sense. Like, yeah, Fields is learning. Fields is growing. And this is part of that process. Making mistakes is part of that process. And, going through them, seeing things that you thought you might want to do differently and then trying to correct them in the future is how, as he said 3 different times, he goes through the evolution of a quarterback. Literally 3 different times in that, minute and 20-second clip or however long that was. Evolution of a quarterback. And that's all fine and good and true to some degree. But I think the context that's missing there a little bit, and I think was missing throughout Getsy's press conference, even in other clips, is like, this is year 3 for Justin Fields, right? That's all good and well and part of the quarterback evolution when you're a rookie and even in your second season, perhaps. And I'm even still willing to say, like, yeah, he doesn't need to be a perfect quarterback, right? He doesn't need to be everything figured out in year 3, but like, the context here is like, you're running out of time, right? This evolution is going too slowly. And the slower that this evolution goes, the less confident you are that he's actually going to evolve and that you're actually going to see that progress and not just keep seeing signs of being close. You're being close, you put it together occasionally, but putting it together more consistently is the hard part. And again, it feels like the later you go, the longer you go through this, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to all of a sudden have it all click when you've been doing it for 3 seasons worth of time. And I think that's sort of the missing component here from Getsy. The other side of this too is like, you spent the whole offseason. Well, first of all, you had all last year. And then also, of course, then the whole offseason, minicamp, OTAs, training camp, and limited amounts of preseason to figure this out. And now all of a sudden, we sort of move the goalposts here. And we heard Luke Getsy, we heard Ryan Poles talk about it too. It's like, well, even the preseason's not really like real football action. Like it doesn't quite seem like regular season. Sometimes you got to go against a real pass rush and a real opponent with real stakes in order to start to see this stuff. And like, yeah, that's true. And I've made that point before on the podcast about some things, but it's not like this is happening to everybody. I mean, we are seeing some sloppy offense around the league, right? It's not like everyone comes out week 1 and is totally crisp, but like other teams have figured it out sooner. Other teams are not making all these same mistakes. Other teams that have had new offensive coordinators, new receivers, more turnover than the Bears have. Baker Mayfield's in his first season with the Buccaneers, new offensive coordinator there. That's been a pretty quick adjustment. He's the best quarterback on 3rd down in the NFL, right? You're not hearing them giving these sort of excuses of like, oh, well, it's the development of a quarterback and he's got, brand new pieces and new receivers. And like, yeah, if the Buccaneers were 0-2, we'd probably understand that because it is all new for them. The Bears don't have that excuse. Their excuse is that Fields is young. I mean, he's in year 3, but like DJ Moore is new. Yes, Chase Claypool is new-ish, but like it's the same offense. It's a lot of same offensive linemen, same tight end, some of the same receivers, same coordinator, same quarterback, same running backs, some of them. Like they don't have the same sort of like, yeah, be patient excuses. Like we're running out of patience. That's why this criticism is there. There's the time for patience and benefit of the doubt, and I'll give them time. Like that was last year. And maybe even week 1. I was trying to, I'll give you week 1, first game. Sometimes you stumble out of the gate a little bit, but like 2 weeks in a row, and it's probably going to be 3 weeks in a row against a really good Chiefs defense. At some point, like you can't just say it's part of the evolution process because it doesn't feel like the evolution process is happening enough, and that's where it becomes a frustration. That again, you can say all the right things, but without that context of like, well, yeah, but the timeline and where they are and this team, it loses some of its power there and doesn't feel very satisfying as a potential answer there. It's not going to feel satisfying against the Kansas City Chiefs this week. I mean, there's always a chance in the NFL, any given Sunday, but there's a reason they're 12.5-point underdogs on FanDuel right now. We'll look for reasons, though. If the Bears are going to pull up the upset of the season with everything going wrong and band together and find a way to win, we'll look for some of the areas where they might be able to do so next on Locked On Bears. The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks, the better way to do daily fantasy sports, because at PrizePicks, you're in complete control of your success or failure. You pick 2 to 6 players, and you decide whether they will perform above or below their PrizePicks projections. And if you can get your PrizePicks right, you're going to win up to 25 times your money. So like right now, Justin Fields' prize pick projection is 171.5 passing yards. If you pick him and whether he will go above or below that projection, plus you pair him with 1 to 5 other players, that's how you can win big. You're not relying on your lineup to beat somebody else's lineups. It's just you versus the house. It really is a lot of fun. It's a great way to get started in daily fantasy football if you haven't done it before. So head on over to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use our promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's an extra $100 added to your deposit to play with at prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. There's not going to be an easy way to slow down and take down Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. As we heard on yesterday's Crossover Thursday podcast, these aren't your father's Chiefs, or these aren't your grandfather's Chiefs, but like these aren't your 2 years ago Chiefs, right? Or last year's Chiefs. These aren't your 2022 Chiefs. They're struggling a little bit. They're 2-0, or no, they're 1-1, but like they beat the Jaguars last week, a playoff team, and they were tight with the Lions, but they've been sloppy offensively. We saw in week 1 a dropped pass through Kadarius Toney's hands that ended up being a pick 6 the other direction. They were without Travis Kelce and Chris Jones in week 1. They've had a bunch of penalties that have gotten them into 3rd and long situations on offense. They've got receivers running the wrong routes to the wrong spots. A lot of things that are similar to what we're seeing with the Bears offense. Just the difference being they've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce to make up for it. Well, the Bears have Justin Fields and DJ Moore. I mean, sure, it's no chopped liver, but it's not Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And so that's where you're scared, right? Like the good news is through 2 games, they've scored 20 points and 17 points against the Lions and the Jaguars, who they're not bad defenses by any means, but I don't think of them either one as like elite defenses. The Lions, I think, are bottom third of the league this year so far in defense, and the Jaguars, I think, are a little bit higher up on that, but it's not like Patrick Mahomes is going out there and putting 40 points on every team that he plays because they don't have wide receivers. Kadarius Toney's hurt this week. Another one of their receivers is hurt. I think Richie James is also hurt this week. Isaiah Pacheco, their running back, was limited at practice and missed Wednesday's practice. Like, they don't have weapons for Patrick Mahomes right now. And their offensive line is iffy. The big free agent signing, Juwan Taylor, got benched during one of the previous games. Came back in, but was temporarily benched because of penalties and other mistakes he kept making. So that offense is messy. Not Lionel Messi, dirty Messi. And that bodes well for a Bears defense that is trying to find its footing. I mean, the Chiefs also look at this Bears defense and say, our offense is going to be able to figure it out against this defense. But in theory, it's not like it's a well-oiled Chiefs offense coming in ready to just light up this Bears defense. They might still, but it's not like they're really killing it right now. The Chiefs defense is weirdly the stronger unit. I never thought I'd see a Patrick Mahomes-led team where the defense is better than the offense right now. Could that have anything to do with offensive coordinator Matt Nagy? You be the judge. But Steve Spagnuolo, as a defensive coordinator, loves to get after young quarterbacks and throw a lot of different things in Justin Fields' face. So you're going to have to be careful with what he's going to do with the fronts, with the blitzing, with moving different guys around. Like we talked with yesterday with Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs. They've been moving, at least last week and sort of the preseason and stuff, they've been moving Chris Jones around. So he's not just purely lining up at the 3-technique pass rushing spot, but they'll play him at the end, they'll play him at the nose, up and down the defensive line to try and find that matchup that they like. So we could see Chris Jones against Larry Borum at left tackle or Darnell Wright at right tackle to find an advantage at one of those spots. Or maybe it's Lucas Patrick at center. I mean, wherever they want to put him, I think they're going to put him in a bunch of different spots, make the Bears adjust their protections, call out where the blitzes are supposed to be coming from, guys blitzing from different areas, guys dropping back. It's going to be a mind game with Justin Fields. We saw this team generally handle that pretty well with Todd Bowles last week. So I think there's some, dare I say, optimism with the Bears offense. I don't know. That might be too strong. But, there's some feeling of maybe it won't be a complete disaster. Maybe, just maybe. If you can keep tabs on Travis Kelce, really curious to see if Tremaine Edmonds can kind of keep up with him every time he's working over the middle of the field, because the middle of the field was way too open for Jordan Love in week 1. You need the likes of Brisker and Tremaine Edmonds to step up. You're also going to need, your offensive line to keep tabs on Chris Jones at all times and double team him. The rest of their defensive line doesn't scare you a ton. The George Karlaftises of the world, the Mike Danas, sure, there's some threat there. They're not nobodies, but it's just they're not elite, scary pass rushers that are going to really, threaten you a ton. Their secondary is not full of household names by any means. It's as vulnerable of a Chiefs team as we've seen in some time. There's real opportunity here It's just the Bears are at rock bottom organizationally right now. Like, it's hard for things to get worse. So it's the worst time to be playing the Chiefs from the Bears' perspective, but also the best time to be playing the Chiefs from the Chiefs' perspective. So, there's room here, right? There's wiggle room here. If the Chiefs can continue to beat themselves with penalties and continue to have turnovers, even if it's not like bad decisions by Mahomes, but a strip sack from Yannick Ngakoue, a dropped pass by a receiver that gets picked off, a batted pass to the line of scrimmage that gets picked off, a muffed punt, a blocked field goal, turnovers that can give the Bears an extra edge there. And if the Bears can band together and say, all right, everything's going crazy around here, have it bring us closer together and not pull us farther apart, band together, figure their stuff out and play for each other with everything going on to try and just, find some motivation that way. And if the Bears can then stop having all the penalties, stop turning the ball over, if they can put Justin Fields in better positions, and if Justin Fields can trust his eyes and his arm again, build that confidence back up, like, you can start to talk yourself into the Bears being a sneaky team to at least cover the 12.5-point spread, maybe. Like, can you talk yourself into this not being a blowout? Because on paper, heading into, like week 2 and even after week 1, like, this was gearing up to be a big blowout. And it could still be a big blowout, but it does feel like there's like a path here to not get blown out. Like, is that a fair level of optimism that we can take? The optimism is not Bears are going to pull off the upset. Just you watch, they're going to pull off the upset. The optimism is, hey, maybe they won't get blown out. I think that's where we're at season-wise. I think, not that you can, I'm not going to say a moral victory thing, but you can take small solace in, like, hey, maybe they won't get blown out. And if they can be respectable, maybe, against the Chiefs team, it's still going to be 0-3, most likely. I don't know there's much getting around that, but could it be a better version of 0-3 than getting absolutely wiped to the floor and hitting some further down rock bottom that we didn't even anticipate? That's where I think we can look for, again, call it optimism, call it wishful thinking, whatever it is. There's always still room for that. We always here on the podcast try and find, some ways to give you something to watch for, even when hope is low, even when, despair is high and when the team is giving you nothing to feel good about. We always look for something. We always try and leave you with, we're never going to be the rose-colored goggles, homer, overly positive fanboys here. This is not a fanboy podcast. If you've been listening to me for the last 7 years we've been doing this podcast, you will never find this to be a fanboy podcast. But I never want to be the all negative all the time podcast either. I always strive to, first of all, never see things as black and white, but then also like have nuance here and understand things are both good and bad at the same time, and it can be more than one thing. And that's where I'm looking at now, right? Things are really bad. There are still reasons why you can find not only reasons to tune in, but just reasons for hope or optimism where maybe things could go well. And you know what? We've seen crazier things in the NFL. No matter what craziness happens, you can be sure we'll break it all down for you right here on the podcast on Monday. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Really appreciate all of you who make Locked On Bears your first listen each and every day. And in exchange, I'm always going to give you an opportunity to bear down.